My name is Josefa Domingos. I'm a physiotherapist for anyone that doesn't know us. And John Dean is a speech therapist. And the topic that we bring you today, I'm not going to say I'm very passionate about it. I'm very intrigued by it because I work in the clinic in Portugal. I also do research. And it's interesting to see the differences in terms of adherence to exercise. And above all, working in Portugal, we do have a culture of, we don't have a culture of exercise like I see in the US.
Especially Colorado. Yeah.
Yes.
They're like
yes.
polar opposites.
So I work mostly with people that do not like to exercise and that struggle a lot to do exercise. And so all this talk and this intrigueness, our own passion for the topic is because on a daily basis, I am facing questions on and thinking about how can I help that person overcome a specific barrier that's stopping them from being motivated to exercise. So I know, as I said, I do get a feeling every time I interact with people from the US and people that we have online, and it's extremely, now there is intriguing how everyone is just so motivated to exercise. We actually had a questionnaire that we sent out, and where we were asking how many times people exercise, and I did put the option of none. And what I was so amazed, we had about 35 responses, and no one said never. Like, what?
I think that's the power.
So everyone was exercising above 3 times or 4 times per week, right? So it's nice to see that change. This is more recent that this idea of exercise has been more raising more awareness, right? So you hear it from everyone. And so our topic for today will be really to discuss that even though people might be hearing it, I wish it was as simple as telling someone to do exercise in order for them to do exercise. It's much more complex. There's a lot of things that are happening, and I hope to share some ideas with you. And please feel free to interrupt us with any questions if you want to put in the chat. I'll be happy to brainstorm with you on your specific situation. But we will start by just sharing with you the aim is to really help us recognize the common barriers, because sometimes things might be happening, people might not, or slightly in the background, and you might not notice how it will have an impact on activities. So I think the first way for us to be able to bypass barriers is to really be able to recognize them. So, and then obviously we don't want to be focusing on only talking about problems, but seeing what solutions are possible for each one of those barriers that we call it, to bypass it. Okay, sounds like a plan. Hope everyone is in agreement, and we will begin. I will share, this is how the scientific community is more or less dividing what we call exercise barriers. So these are obstacles or things that happen, so I would call it factors that may occur and that may have an impact on your exercise behavior. And divided into 3 different categories. So we have health factors, personal factors, or environmental factors. And I will be giving just a slight example of each one of them. And then we dive into solutions on each one of them. When we think about health factors, this is something I usually tell to the family members. It's like because it's mostly the families that are usually complaining, saying, that person's being very lazy. He's just being lazy. He doesn't want to do exercise. And I think the word lazy might be just the reflection of the not understanding how complex Parkinson might be. Of course, there's personality. There's always someone that says, no, this is his personality. It's usually the woman that usually complain a little bit more about their person with Parkinson. That's just nature of woman. And so by doing this, is just what it says to me is that people might not understand that there's such a list of symptoms that can really change the way the person is feeling in that moment, or in that day, or in that month. And so by knowing how each one of these symptoms might impact my I would say, I don't want to use motivation too much, my willing to move on that day. Not even, I would say, exercise, but also do my daily activities is important for us to see how we can bypass it. So we have, besides Parkinson, we can start off by, as we get older, we have more health issues. So on that note, we have already normal health issues that can occur and can stop us from wanting to do any type of exercise. But then we have all the motor symptoms, that the slowness of movement, the rigidity, that is the characteristics, baseline characteristics of Parkinson, right? Then we have all the non-motor issues as well, which I'm not going into too much detail because I know this, you probably have heard a lot in talks, and you have all the symptoms like anxiety, constipation. A person wakes up in the morning and you're feeling very constipated. Your willingness to interact, even socially, is already compromised, right? Besides all these motor and non-motor symptoms, there's also possible disease complications that can occur, and there's also medication complications that occur. So it's a very dramatic, awful view. And now we have to place this into a disease that we know that progresses. So I'm trying to be as honest and transparent as we can in terms of the disease. This is knowledge that people have access. We know it's going to progress. Parkinson is considered a slow progressive disease. It is interrupted by crisis situations. So there might be moments where you might have an infection or something and then you feel that your symptoms got slightly worse. But the progression is supposed to be slow. So this is important knowledge for people to understand. And now we have to think about, okay, so what type of exercise am I going to do where am I? When we talk about stages here, that's usually something that is mostly used in research so that we can get the right people in the right studies. In the clinic, people might be considered, they might have symptoms that reflect stages of 2 and 3, but then they can go back to 1 and 2. So it's not as clear as it is here defined. And this was a line of thought in terms of exercise, which was in the last 2-3 years projected, which is people should be recommended non-specific exercises in the early stages of the disease. And then as the disease progresses, they should be focusing on more Parkinson-specific exercises. I must say that this has been highly challenged now, particularly in this last year, because more focus has been done on the research on exercise. And at this moment, we are defending that specific people should access a specialized health professional right from the diagnosis. So I'm very happy to say it's changing. And why? Because if we have this notion of progression, it's not only a question of understanding in what stage is the person, but also these moments of crisis that I told you, right? So there's moments where I might have maybe a normal health issue. I twisted my ankle, something like that, and that will interfere how I'm going to exercise. So let's think about how these episodes might interrupt and how we can bypass that as well. These are examples of when I call these crisis situations. I think it's important. Knowledge is supposed to help us. It's not supposed to scare us. And so when things like this might happen, people will immediately say, wait, this is my Parkinson. I know this can happen. This is how I should manage it. Instead of what's going on, I don't understand what's this. I wake up in the morning, in the middle of the night, and suddenly I'm feverish and I'm seeing things that I'm not supposed to be seeing. And those are situations that can bring on a lot of panic. But if I know that maybe I have an infection or something, let me go, get some blood work and see. I can control the anxiety related to these panic situations. Okay, so I was just sharing with you. That's one way for us to control managing Parkinson. When we think, this is where probably people immediately go when we think about the person's not motivated to do exercise. And these were, I would say, the top 6 factors that were identified through research that was done on trying to identify the barriers to exercise. And the number 1 was really low self-efficacy. So if I believe that I can't do a specific exercise, I will not engage in it. I will not feel motivated to do it. If I have a fear of falling while I'm doing some exercise, then the tendency for me to stop doing or reducing the amount of times I'm doing it will increase. So it compromises my will to be able to do the exercise. Then we have one which I think is also very important. The first question I usually ask someone when they come in is like, do you believe that the exercise can help you? And even if the person says, nah, not really, and then I will use the word negotiate with him and say, can you give me a month of trying to convince you that it can? Because unfortunately, it's not a pill that I can give you. One day we'll probably have this. I'm suspecting that someone must be thinking of this. Just have your exercise pill, take it, and that's done. Everyone that doesn't like exercise loves that idea. But here it's just like really making the person believe takes time, because you have to feel it. If you don't feel it, you won't believe that it's working. So the expectations I have about an exercise program really working and helping me is fundamental. Another one that sometimes might happen as you start an exercise program and you feel more physical discomfort. And here it's going to clash, it's going to go against what you're supposed to be feeling like. So if you are supposed to be feeling good with exercise and suddenly you have more pain, you have more discomfort, this is a motive that sometimes passes very neglected, because people will say, you did exercise, it's supposed to hurt. You're supposed to feel it. You're supposed to get tired. This is worth us talking about, because what is expected is you can feel slightly tired, but it cannot have an impact on the rest of the day. So if someone does an exercise class and then spends the rest of the afternoon in bed, something is wrong. Exercise should not steal hours of your life. It's supposed to help empower you. And then another one that usually I would say is in a humorous way, lack of time. When people tell me I don't have time, and I like to listen a lot, because of course the first thing that pops up in my head is thinking, how do you not have time? You're retired. You told me you just do nothing the whole day, or mostly nothing the whole day. But before I use this judgment, I say, why do you think you don't have time? And suddenly the person starts describing, well, I wake up in the morning and I take about 2 or 3 hours to get ready. So when we think about how the disease might affect, progression, is about the rigidity will make people slower. So they will start taking more time in their daily activities. And so it's interesting, the person spends 2 hours to try to, take a shower, bath, get ready. And then he has to quickly go to the store and do something to prepare for lunch. And then it's cleaning the kitchen. So the truth is, at the end of the day, the person really doesn't have time. So it's fascinating to just go through the day and try to see where we can fit it. And then another one that I've added in here, and I wanted to catch up at the end, was really not knowing what to do. And that's an intriguing new problem, because there might be different options. You might have different professionals telling you different things, and that might be very challenging. So I would really highlight this one, which is my low expectations. If I really don't believe that I can do it, and again, I refer to the families pushing, no, you have to do this, you have to go to the boxing class, you have to. And if we just stop for a minute, like, how do I feel if I can really do it? And what support do I need so that I can feel that I can do it? The environmental factors is a big list. I think we can maybe include everything here, but the truth is there are things that people report, like, I went to a gym, it's so crowded, it makes me feel more anxious, seeing those people going through the corridors. So those are more like physical, environmental barriers. Or I don't have support in doing the exercise partner will come up in our talk more often. Or like seeing others, this is particularly interesting, or seeing others with more difficulties in groups. Because most common practice is, when we think about exercise, is people are involved in Parkinson specific groups, exercise groups. And we need to have the option of individual, which is usually like personal training. The person is individually with a personal trainer or an exercise professional or a physiotherapist. To bypass this problem is intriguing because as professionals, when we do groups, it's difficult to separate people. And even if we do separate them as much as we want to match people, the disease is so complex that on one day you might be really good and on the next day you might not, right? 1 hour you might be really good, and then so those fluctuating characteristics of the disease make it really challenging for professionals to actually put groups that are functional. I do believe, I do a lot of groups as well, is that the friendships, once they created, it will be the glue. So it's the friendships that you create. And then you might have other things like one of the most common ones will be lack of transportation. And as difficulties might come in for the person and also for who might be helping, what I like to call a journey partner instead of a care partner. So both might have difficulties in this, in driving from one place to another. Bad weather, I better not even touch that topic because that's so sensitive at this moment with all the climate changing.
Well, the heat for sure, yeah.
So now I've just gave you a glimpse of how maybe some factors, I don't know if some of them resonate with you or not, but feel free to put in your, I think you can even put it anonymous if you want. So yeah, I'm gonna just focus now on maybe brainstorming with you on ways that health professionals and patients have given us input on how we can bypass it. Some things will probably be obvious, but it is worth us just going through it just in case it's not for somebody. And I'll start off by thinking about these health issues. So if I have Parkinson and I have all these symptoms that can really interfere, that knowledge that I gave you about how it can influence, I think is fundamental, so that the first thing that I would say is like, we have access to a lot of talks and webinars and knowledge about the disease, and I think we need probably more talks on how these symptoms can really affect our daily activities, be more practical. And it's a recommendation that people really learn the symptoms in a way that, how can I identify this problem? How can I identify that I have more rigidity? I will give you an example that happened to me today. Someone that we were about to do climbing, and she came in and she was very concerned because she was feeling some numbness in her feet. And I'm not usually with her. She doesn't read a lot about Parkinson, so it's just. And I said, but do you feel more rigid? Because she was asking me, should I do more physical therapy? From what she was describing, it has nothing to do with physiotherapy. It just has to do with the fact that she's so tense driving that this. I said, when is this happening? This is happening when she's driving. So she's feeling more nervous about and anxious about the driving, that she's having more rigidity in that activity, which is a common thing that will happen in Parkinson. The rigidity will increase if you are more tired, right? If some change happened in the medication. I asked if there was any changes. So we go through all these brainstorming just to understand that understanding how the symptoms might influence your movement will help you to manage that in terms of how am I going to change my exercises that I need to do for that day.
I think stressful driving in Lisbon is actually a totally normal response. It's frightening, so I can totally see that tension.
You can see the impact it's having, that she's probably having so much strength on the hands that's creating so much rigidity through the back to be able to provoke that.
Yeah.
So a key message is, I wish that all the talks were perfect in terms of addressing your problems. Sometimes there's just a description of the symptoms, but hopefully you can find the right information about really understanding how these motor and non-motor symptoms might be impacting you. So this is a description from someone with Parkinson. Sometimes I'm depressed when I wake up in the morning, disappointed that I woke up. So this is obviously someone that is dealing with severe depression. And it is very difficult for someone that's highly depressed to be able to, okay, yeah, I'm just going to go exercise because everyone tells me to exercise.
I mean, oddly enough, the depression would probably be improved by the exercise, but I think you have to go to the doctor and address it
Yeah.
first.
And that's the key message. It's like sometimes we might, this is just part of Parkinson. And so people might not act so quickly on changes in symptoms. And unfortunately, because they also don't have a lot of access to doctors so quickly, I wish everyone could just call a number and just, you know what, I'm dealing with this. What do you think I should do, right? Hopefully we'll get to that. But
I will say in the States a little bit. I mean, if you had access to my chart or something like that, it's a little different. The healthcare system over here is totally different. And people work with Josefa for years. I mean, she's got people on her caseload for 13, 14 years forever, and it's awesome. I wish everyone could have that. But so if you have ways to reach out to your doctor with my chart, that might be a possibility. It's not over here, but it is maybe in the States. Or if you're using Kai through that situation as well.
So, and to summarize this, is just the key message will be, before we jump quickly to the person's just being lazy, depression is so confused with laziness, right? And unfortunately, depression is really a symptom that occurs in Parkinson due to the low dopamine. So be mindful that might influence. I wanted to also just reinforce this message with knowing when we do learn about the symptoms, we are able to better distinguish, wait a minute, am I just feeling more anxious? So feeling low or nervous or indifferent is completely different, these feelings, right? If I'm feeling more nervous, anxiety, when I think about just going out or going to do some exercise or just seeing people at the gym, that is already a factor of fatigue, for example, right? Just that. The depression, and then I want to highlight the apathy. So I often have the families complaining, oh, he doesn't want to do anything. And then I'm with the person, and the person is doing all the exercises, and he's hiding, and he's just doing what I'm suggesting to do, right? Which means what? Apathy is me being completely indifferent. But if somebody tells me what to do, I will do it.
Maybe right? Routine too.
So it's different from depression. Depression, I don't have, I'm going to use the incorrect word, the soul to do it, right? My mood is completely compromised. Apathy is very difficult to treat. That's there, but each one of these symptoms has pharmacological treatment, and we do know that it is important for us to stimulate anyone that's dealing with these three problems to also do exercise, because exercise is also one of the ways to help. Okay.
And someone actually says this in a chat here. They said, I think dealing with the psychological symptoms is harder than dealing with the motor symptoms.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. You can see all the motor stuff. It's right in front of you.
And then she adds, I don't care that I don't care.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how it's for me as a health professional to motivate someone with apathy is extremely, it's the hardest thing that you can do, right? Usually you have to get to a level of confidence with the person where you can be playful, and then you just laughing about how difficult it is. It's like, I'm torturing you. And yeah, you are, but it's not your fault. So these are the kind of comments that we have in the clinic. Okay, so that point is get knowledge on how these can affect. And then another one was, if you feel that a specific symptom is really, not allowing you to exercise, and or getting also knowledge is like, how can I quickly, discuss it with the doctor, as we were mentioning before. And discussing it with the doctor, sometimes, like I'll grab onto this example that I said with the woman today, and she said, no, but I just went to the doctor and I told him that I was stiff. I said, yes, but you know what? You did not tell him that this was impacting your capacity to drive, and how it's affecting, and she actually drives all day, it's part of her job. So the way we are going to emphasize the impact that it has on your daily life is fundamental for a doctor to give it more importance or less. That doesn't mean he doesn't care. It's just he's trying to assess if it's worth increasing or not the medication or changing it. If you are stable and you feel okay, and then he's probably not going to be changing a lot. And that's the feeling that he doesn't like to change the medication a lot. I said, yes, that's true. But if it's really stopping you from doing your job, if you tell him that sentence, he will change his mind, right?
That's kind of the same metric for when you started medications. It's when the symptoms became impairing enough, difficult enough that they were influencing your quality of life. And so when it crops up and it influences another part of your quality of life, that is exactly why you'd want to. But you need to tell the doctor it in the right way.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is, it's just a list, and you'll have access to the tool. It's just a way for people to communicate and feel that they're being heard in a different way. Ideally, the doctor will be able to make questions and help you and extract this information from you, but time is so limited and we have access to so much knowledge now. Why not teach people this? So things that make it worse and things that make it better for me is fundamental for me to be able to think about solutions. But jumping on, this is just the way we look at any symptom in Parkinson, how we can improve it. So let's include here motivation and mood, anxiety, whatever symptom you think of. Important for me to be able to change anything, I have to understand what it is. So learning how to recognize the problem, reporting it effectively, and then being able to evaluate what are the things that are making it worse and what are the things that make it better. Those are usually guides to treatment. So in this case that I was giving you, by doing exercise, she alleviates the rigidity, and so that just validates that it's your Parkinson. Because if it was your back pain or some problem, it wouldn't go away so easily. And then obviously knowing that most of the symptoms with Parkinson have pharmacological interventions, and hopefully you have a good relationship with your neurologist that you can reach out to them. And then obviously today we're talking about one of the biggest solutions for most of the problems, which is exercise. And that's why it's worth us studying what can stop you from exercise, given the importance that it has for all the symptoms at this moment. So we go on to another message. We try to exercise when you feel your medication is having a good effect and when you're feeling well. I'm sure this is something that maybe most of you already have heard. Sometimes we ask about what is the right time to exercise, and just choose the time that you feel well. Sometimes if you have exercise classes at a specific hour, and that's not when my medication is on, and how can you bypass that? It's a good discussion to have with your neurologist, how you can adjust the medication according to that. But ideally you should be exercising when you feel that the medication is working well. The relevance of this is, as we know, if you are here on the call and you're recently diagnosed, and when we are prescribed medication, we take them. We're not supposed to feel indifferent. We're supposed to feel better with them. That's fine. But we're not, like if for some reason I didn't take it, you might not even perceive differences.
Yeah, that's early on, right?
Yes. People might say, I don't feel the difference. So sometimes they might even neglect taking it because they don't feel the difference. And it's important to transmit this to people, that in the early stages, that's what the doctors want. They want you to never feel these intervals, these fluctuations, as we call it. And that means there's moments when the medication is having an effect. It has a specific time, and then you take another pill. It has another specific interval, and this emphasizes the importance of people taking the medication on time, so that your brain never suffers. They always know you have a nice fluid entrance of dopamine. Of course, there's lots of things that we can go into detail here about. If your stomach's full, if you're too tired, and maybe the effect is not so strong. But just be mindful. If I feel good, I'll probably have a good session, and that will influence all the bad moments. Okay, so this one is it seems like it's the same thing, but it's imagine that the example I just gave. You had a bigger meal than usual, maybe someone's birthday or something. You ate more than usual, and you have your exercise class at 3 o'clock. And for some reason, you're not feeling that quite yourself. And being able to have the flexibility to adjust your exercise program would be something worth thinking about. So I know if we go to an exercise class, we feel the pressure of the group, and that's why people actually do more when they're in groups. So boxing, for example, is highly vigorous. Everyone must probably have that experience. and everyone's just punching. But if I know myself and I know that, you know what, I'm not really on my A game, I think that's the expression you use, it's okay. It's today. It's okay. And so I now will just, today I'm not going to push myself more. And sometimes people that are very anxious about not doing it or very perfectionist are the people that suffer most, because they really always want to do everything perfectly. And it's almost like they're failing when they don't do the exercise routine the way they used to or they did yesterday. But I think it's an important message to pass. Be kinder to yourself in terms of adapting the exercise.
Give yourself some grace for sure. And you can change it based on the day-to-day fluctuation.
Yeah. And so this is a good example, like on a good day, maybe 5-minute walk might be good, or 30 minutes. Giving yourself some time to also adjust to the fatigue that you might be feeling, or even the stress at work or stress with family. Sometimes will influence also mental fatigue, and then you're less open to the exercise. Okay, so let's add in on another one. Everyone doing okay? Yes? I wanted to highlight here on fatigue, right? So on days when fatigue is an issue, yes. If we are in a gym where we have some freedom to choose between classes, I don't know if that is so common in the US, but I guess so. If you get a whole picture of what are my options in the gym that I'm going to, right? Well, so that maybe in situations or where you might not feel, you imagine you change your medication, you're still adapting to the change, so you're not at your best, and you can choose other types of activities that maybe require less. That could, without feeling that you're failing, right? Without feeling that. So that's also a good thing that sometimes people don't consider, just changing what they're doing. Okay. Now, key things that you might, this one I usually say it's like obvious, right? Being consistent, regular activity. There's this paper that came out about exercise snacks. And so people that felt they couldn't do a lot of exercise, it was comparable doing 1 minute of exercise, being consistent doing 1 minute. So I usually call like the exercise of shame, just have an exercise that's so low, but it's just important that you do it frequently. If you have someone that spends the day on the couch, right, you have to go to really extreme situations to be able to convince that person to just get out of the couch. Right. And being consistent with simple things.
Just because you guys or most of you are in Colorado, many of you that's kind of the whole Davis Finney Foundation, every victory counts kind of approach, where it's like take whatever you can and build on that. And I think that's a super healthy way to look at everything, not just Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then something that we don't also often hear or discuss, which is giving yourself time to rest and to recover. Given the amount of times, frequency that people are doing exercise at this moment, it's probably going to be an important topic that will come in the next years, I think. What is too much exercise? Has anyone seen here a talk about too much exercise? No. No one is daring to do
Colorado,
it.
They wouldn't let that one. They're like, nope, can't come to
It
this.
should be done in Colorado. So
yeah, probably. Don't say that.
I have been thinking about what would it look like, what would a talk be like that, because I'm highly concerned about that because of the vigorous exercise recommendations that are coming out.
Yeah.
But so just having that into consideration, as I told you before, an exercise is supposed to empower you, to make you feel good. You might not feel it right away. You have to have some patience, but something that causes you discomfort and takes you to bed the rest of the day is not okay. So obviously all these things can, when I think about something specific like low self-efficacy, I don't believe I can do it. Extreme situations of depression, apathy, dismotivation. If you are able to access a professional, usually it's easier. This is kind of like a comment for a family that's trying to motivate someone. It's easier for someone else to come in and motivate the person than actually the person hearing it from the family.
Yeah, I have to say, especially if your family member works in the industry in some way, then you definitely don't want to hear from them. It's easier to bring someone outside.
Yeah. It's a different relationship. I mean, I try helping my mom all the time, and I can't. I just,
Me too. There are better ways to have a relationship with them.
yeah. This one is, I think, one of the ones that we have more hope on, which is getting education on the benefits of exercise, as most of the talks on exercise is telling you about how beneficial it is. I say hope because, again, I've said this already, is I wish that just telling someone how much exercise benefits you would motivate people enough. I wish it was enough, and it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. But it is an important component. I think, especially when I have someone that's very septic or very intellectual, as I call it. It's people that don't like to exercise a lot. It's because they like to read a lot. And the one way to get to the person is like, can I show you a specific benefit that exercise has on this or on that or on that? I have lots to say, right, as you can imagine, but not overwhelming the person and thinking of something that really helps. It's worth always trying that strategy, but not getting stuck on it, on just telling people the benefits. And then there's a particular one, which is if you have someone in front of you that doesn't really believe that they can do it, that they're going to have to feel that it is effective. So make sure that whatever type of exercise that you are doing, you are always feeling that it is effective. Now, what does this mean? How do I know if something is effective or not? Whatever exercise I'm doing. These are key questions that I want to share with you to reflect on. And it's ways and criteria that you can use to know that whatever exercise you're doing, if it is effective. One that I've highlighted before is, how do you feel after? Do you feel energized? Do you feel completely mentally fatigued? Do you recover quickly? Right? Do you perceive benefits? So sometimes we might not perceive immediately benefits because everyone obviously wants a miracle and exercise takes time. So I included here family, because other people sometimes perceive, oh, he looks much better, he's walking much better, the benefits, and the person might not perceive it. So having that input. Another question would be, does it help me achieve my goals? So for any exercise, the person is probably doing exercise for a reason. And general reason would be, I want to control the progression of Parkinson. So I'm fighting against the progression of the disease. That's general. Everyone wants that. And then you can have a specific goal, like, I really want to improve my walking because I want to go on holidays and go visit museums. Or I just want to improve the capacity to turn in bed and get out of bed and maybe not take so much time getting dressed. So those goals have to be addressed by a specific type of exercise. You all agree? It's like, if I want to improve my walking, but all I'm doing is yoga, how quickly am I going to improve my walking with yoga? Right? Luckily for us, there's most exercises will improve directly or indirectly something. So that's interesting because of the aerobic component, if that's it. But in yoga, there's not so much aerobic component, so be mindful of that. But that might be another talk. And then I do want to include here research and the evidence, and people are looking into this. They're trying to figure out what makes more sense. So it's also important for us to keep updated on new things that might be coming up regarding any topic, and specifically here exercise, so that it can guide your choices. So you don't get only, I wouldn't say stuck, but you're doing something and at some point something might happen and makes you have to change your exercise, or you might just stop to think and go through these questions and think, wait, I don't feel good after what I'm doing. I don't perceive any benefits. It doesn't help me with what I want to improve. The evidence usually supports almost anything, right? There's an article for everything. But if you think about these questions and you come to this conclusion, would you consider thinking, maybe it's time for me to change what I'm doing? You see, when do we change? When do we decide to change? Instead of when something happens to me, but now I have enough knowledge to think about, I want to achieve a different goal, so I should change.
You know, what you said about articles for everything, I think that's another thing. This is when you're working with your physiotherapist or your exercise professional, like in Colorado, the Sparks study came from Dr. Champion was one of the co-PIs, and I think that's important because that's a really big study with real randomized, double-blinded, and comparing that to something that is N of 13 and published with in not a very well-known journal, and so sometimes I think the evidence is not the evidence, and so it's also helpful to understand that.
I'm just quickly looking into the chat, and someone has said the audio is okay.
Yeah, that was a while back. We're good. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's when I was checking the mic a little while back.
The last one that I was saying about effective is making sure that you, in a program or whatever you do, that you feel that you have flexibility to adapt. So the boxing is a good example. Sometimes we feel that pressure, but just knowing that whoever is delivering the program is open to understand in moments that you might not be so well. Sometimes people share with me, oh, but I have to do what they're doing. And I said, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself because the teacher does know that you have Parkinson. This is more, sometimes it happens in classes where people are going to exercise classes that don't have people with Parkinson.
Just a general spin class or a general Pilates or something.
And they
like
might
that.
feel that they don't want to change the class or influence it. It shouldn't. If you have a good professional with you, it shouldn't be an issue because we train to adapt.
Well, and I would say one step further on that is some of the research for, say, like Tai Chi. The Tai Chi study that came out 13 years ago, Dr. Lee's work out of Oregon, that was a heavily modified program, and I think that's important to recognize is that you want to change it. You want to modify it to make it most beneficial for your Parkinson's. And Pilates is another one. There's a bunch of positions in Pilates that I wouldn't want to inflict on somebody. So changing it is the name of the game, I think.
Okay, so as we jump on to reduced motivation, which I think is what we always say, that person's dismotivated. Might not be, might be depression, apathy, remember, all those things that can cause similar effects. I was seeing someone that said the only thing that I have found is grandchildren, right, for apathy. Yeah. Yes, I would agree.
That works.
Always bring in the grandkids as the last resource.
Hey, don't be afraid to bring out the big guns, for sure.
Tips and tricks that we can think about reduced motivation. I think this is very person specific. So again, the more I get to know the person, the family, the environment, I can probably be more creative. But general things that we think about is just being able to, if what I'm doing, I don't feel so motivated. Can maybe I think about changing how the training is going? Do I need to change maybe the goals that I want to achieve with the exercise? How just being prepared to change it according to what may happen. It's difficult to give very individualized examples here, but I wanted to, the most logical, I would say plan. What people usually follow most commonly is I'm doing some sort of exercise and now I need to increase, maybe I should introduce some variety. I need to put something different so it can keep me motivated. I need to maybe make it either more intense or less intense. These are things that you can do so that it will not compromise your motivation. Maybe I should rest a bit and maybe I shouldn't go to 5 classes straight. Or maybe I should. So just think about these criteria as ways for you to be able to always keep yourself motivated. I want to give you a practical example, which would be something that most people do, which is walking. So most people take a walk per day. Sometimes it's neglected as an exercise because it's just me going out for a walk. But the truth is, it is one of the human functions that we most value, which is our walking. So it actually should be more highlighted as the importance of daily walking and to really get that into your routine. If you miss everything else, this is one of the things that give you most independence, right?
So practical.
Yeah, so here are some examples when I think, okay, so maybe I want to increase the intensity, so I'm going to add in some weights when I go out walking. Maybe I want to do the variety, so when I find a specific spot, I'm going to try to maybe do some high knees for a while, and then I continue my walk. Or I'm going to do some squats. You can introduce different types of exercise as you walk without really interrupting the rhythm. And even if you do interrupt, sometimes it's important to stop, to rest, even if it's 30 seconds, and reset. Because some people might be walking like 1 or 2 hours straight, and then at the end they feel that discomfort that I told you, like low back pain is a complaint that I get often when people are doing like more than an hour of walking. And that's because as we are walking, our walking pattern with fatigue might be more compromised. So our feet might be reduced, our posture might not be as good as it should be. And so a lot of compensations might start happening. So it's worth stopping. The way to bypass that is for people to have more frequent stops. Here's a key one, which is how can I increase enjoyment in whatever exercise that I'm doing? Very personal again. I think one of the things that works most is people using music that they really like. Music is a cue. It's very rarely that I have someone that tells me I don't like music. I don't recall ever having someone say that to me. People might say I don't like dancing, but not the music. Just so if I have someone that's really challenged to do something, what is your preferred music? That type of music that will get you off the couch, that will make you hit your foot. And then we put that on, and that's enough to just restart the session to motivate. And this is so important that it's actually being targeted in terms of research. It was interesting to see that 3 factors that most influenced exercise behavior was gender, and then if you were married or not, and also enjoyment in exercise. And for the word enjoyment to show up in research, it's very hard to characterize and to assess what this is because it's so personal. But it was very good that finally enjoyment is being recognized as fundamental, and it will challenge mostly health professionals and exercise professionals to make sure that what they do is fun. And when I think about sometimes we have to do things that are more or less liked, like when you do balance exercises might be quite boring. And what I like to do in the clinic is usually just have intervals where we're just playful. We're still exercising, but we're just having fun with the exercise. So even if we're cycling, why not, just bring some fun to it. As I said, music is always a good way. Allowing people to have fun is also fundamental. So even if I'm an obsessed therapist and want everything perfectly, which I'm not, we have to be flexible for the people that we have in front of us. These were 2 people that were just having fun, and I looked at they had a mission, they had an activity they should be doing, but they were playing there on the floor, and it's just like, why would I go there, interrupt them and say, what are you doing? Go do your exercise, right? Because the social interaction in these classes is so important. It's more important than any other ingredient that we are doing there. So to really be able to create a space where people feel that interaction is so critical at this moment.
That social prescription is another area of growing research that I think we're going to hear a lot more about. It's kind of where exercise was 15 years ago when people were like, don't work them too hard. It's like, I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not over.
So I was going to now reinforce this, like we can have extreme situations, we can have people highly motivated for exercise, and then we just have to keep them motivated. So sometimes then on less good days, the person, what do I need to do? I have to think about those. If I'm having 2 or 3 days where I'm less motivated to do my exercise, it's time for me to stop to think, maybe I have to change something quickly before I really get into severe dismotivation, right? What I do, like in maybe house, is find a meaningful activity for the person. Even people always offer, what can I do at home in terms of exercise? And then I said, you know what? Why don't you tell me something that you challenge? Like in this case, this woman spent a lot of time watching TV, and she had to always have to adjust the pillows and stuff. So we decided to create an exercise where she just throw in the pillows to the other couch. And then what I want to do is create movement, strengthen the lower limbs, in the arms as well. So we made this video for her so that she would, and she has a cognitive gain associated to it. And by this, I can, when I add in the cognition or the gamified type of exercise, it helps the person be engaged for longer. And so it's one way for us to create now exercises, and maybe it's not the bicycle, maybe it's not the treadmill at home, or maybe it's just we are able to reproduce. So when we think about maybe health professionals that can help you, it's more that they can create something. This is a gentleman that struggles to move around in couches and on the bed, so we created this exercise where it's really trying to stimulate the movement, and then just push yourself against the cupboard and push yourself back. As he's gaining confidence, he will probably increase the variety, the intensity that he's doing. So again, making it fun, rotating, pushing out, and just more functional. I'm going to quickly go through this, which is obviously, actually the music is quite fun. The gentleman is enjoying so much the music. Using technology at this moment, so there's lots of nice cognitive exercises that can be done with physical. He's just singing with the music. He's just so joyful. And it's a simple cognitive exercise, and it's just like every time the bird is on the left, I want you to lift up your right hand. Every time the bird is on the right, your left hand, whatever. So this is just a combination, again, of gamified type of exercise that really helps me motivate people that really are challenged with doing exercise, specifically at home. Okay, so I'm going to jump forward because I'm looking at time. Oh no, are we okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Keep doing what you think here. Make sure someone. This
one might be something that you hear often as well, which is like keep a record, and sometimes we might even be having a lot of nagging from health professionals about apps that write down everything. Write about, and then you go to one professional, they say write down your diet, and then write down your exercise, then write down your symptoms. Then, so I can only imagine that this is complex. But if you are dealing with reduced motivation to exercise, it is sometimes good for you to feel that compromise with yourself. So this is just an example of an exercise that we prescribe to the person. So exercise one for you is this, is that, and the person can see the progression they're having. Smart, how do you call those?
Yeah, smart watches.
Smart watches that count the number of steps have been shown how they motivate. They also interfere. They also help motivate people to. I'm going to do 5,000 steps today. I'm going to do 6,000 steps.
Yeah, there was a big conference that was here just a couple of weeks ago. We met a researcher out of New York that was using just a Fitbit to track and motivate, and it wasn't anything more than the amount of steps. It was a nice, simple motivational tool. And 10,000 steps is not really the key. It's got to be more personal than that.
Yeah, I think it's found. And then this one, again, kind of obvious, but not easy to find, an exercise buddy. Because if it's a friend, I'm careful with friends because friends try to over care sometimes. And so it's like, if you're a friend, you're a friend. You're not there to talk about Parkinson, right? So it's just sometimes just creating that relationship that makes the person want to be with you, right? If a friend's always correcting you, you won't want that. So an exercise buddy is someone that's engaging and with the exercise. For me, the best type of exercise buddy is someone that's sweating with you and is not correcting you, right? Of course, if you need help for correction, but that has to be studied. How often do we give feedback to the person? To not overdo it.
It's like an exercise frenemy. They're too much.
So sometimes we like to guide us like to the family. It's just like, after the third time you've said the same thing, probably the person's really not hearing you, and can you get someone else, some other friend or a neighbor to say the same thing, right? I think kids and grandkids, as I saw in the talk, obviously are good motivating because people tend to have a specific role that they're assuming when they're with their grandkids. And so they will make an effort to do it. Completely very important would be to have an active care or journey partner that is when they are helping or by motivating you, doing the exercise with you. I think not only does it benefit the person with Parkinson, but it does benefit the person as well. So sometimes being present, and I hear it's the seniors doing it at home, but even in an exercise class, I usually always invite the care partners to participate. There's no reason not to.
Sure.
The exercise that we are doing usually are very gamified and fun for all. So I don't think the person will be bored with that. And it usually results in more connection, more questions that show up, and me knowing more about them so I can help them more. Okay, so feeling safe during exercise. How do I know if what I'm doing is safe? I think is a question that we have to capacitate people to know how to recognize it. Again, some key questions that can help you think about, because this might be happening and you don't even notice that I'm not uneasy, right, when I'm in my exercise class. And that feeling of uneasy is really a red flag. So I think safety really has to do with the expert that you're working with. The professionals will be attentive to your difficulties and might suggest A, B, C, or D. Like maybe you can, your position in class might be closer to the corner where you actually have the walls. And so if something should happen, so she doesn't have to be continuously correcting you or be on you or have someone there. If something should happen, you will just go against the wall, stuff like that. So we usually think about safety in a way that it's about falling, but it's not only falling. It's about frustration. It's about someone being attentive to see if you're interacting with others or if you're running away from others, if there might be something there underlining. And then obviously safety is also about how do I feel during the class and after the class. And again, giving some emphasis on the safety of that has been studied in research. The sound that you might be hearing now is just a rainstorm that's coming in.
Yes.
I'm going to just give a little bit more emphasis on safety can be also feeling frustrated. So you can see here are two testimonies of people that I took from social media of how they are just reporting. I will focus here on this one, on the frustration. I left in tears today. I'm usually very positive. Today was hard. It really exasperated my inabilities. So on that day, things did not go so well, and the person might feel frustrated, and this can be a starting point of this motivation. I'm going to jump through this, but and go to really focusing on to make you feel safe. Focus also on the environment that you might be in. There's a difference, as you can see in these two videos. If I'm in very big groups and going from one thing to the other, very busy gyms. If you're already familiar with it, don't think about it, okay? Because I just want to highlight that sometimes this might be a barrier. On the video on the right, what you see is just I have a very safe environment created. Everyone is very engaged in interacting with each other. Yeah. Hopefully we can get to environments that will also transmit that. There's ways for us to be creative about feeling more confident when I go out for my walks, for example, and using Nordic 6 and what do you call them, poles in the US.
Yeah, Nordic walking poles, or hiking poles. There's actually a specific brand that in the US that they use called activators. But
I would say it's particular. Sometimes I don't feel confident to go out for my walk. And it's like, how about you using this? But I don't need it. It's like no, it helps you actually to gain more speed. Especially if you're in these type of environments where I choose to exercise is very important as well. So people might go, especially in Colorado, I would imagine this would happen. People go out on trails.
Yep.
So it's like, no, I don't want by using, for example, the Nordic 6, it's not a question of Parkinson or anything. It's going to help you move better. So if you move better, you actually exercise more, right? And you exercise better. So it could be just an adaptation that people do. And I would emphasize just if you're going alone on these types of hikes. But I'm sure you guys are more experts on that than me.
I'm sure they are. No comment.
Lack of time, obviously, the key message will be building these type of activities into daily routines. So, and because remember I told you I have people that really hate to exercise. So we have to really create moments like if you are waiting for the microwave to do something, how about you just do some squats while you're in the kitchen, right? I wouldn't do crazy things like lifting your feet while you're washing your teeth, because that's right.
Yeah. That'd be a hard injury to explain at the ER.
But there's simple things that I think if you're sitting on the couch and then you for more than half an hour and you just want to lift up, sit and stand is such a basic one.
Even the smartwatches have reminders about getting up like that too.
So just being creative about how can I create that, how can I integrate more activity into my daily life is fundamental. and then making exercise also a daily habit. So there are people that are more structured and like to have, like, I'm going to exercise in the morning. So it's like, no, you have to exercise. I've heard people being restricted about, no, you have to exercise in the morning, and then the person's very young onset and he says, yeah, but I work in the morning and I only come in the afternoon. And this was, for example, the sleep doctor was worried about the person doing too much exercise at the end of the day at 6, 7 o'clock, and that influencing the sleep. And the gentleman says, no, but actually, because it's such a different thing from my work, I actually relax from the anxiety of the work. So we still don't know a right answer for that. And it always goes back to how it happens with you. How do you feel after, right? Okay, this I've mentioned before. I'm sorry, I'm on time, but it's about taking short breaks and being okay with that, and knowing that it's okay to accumulate 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. When you hear that emphasis about you need to have 150 minutes per week, maybe 30 minutes per day, it's okay if you do a walk 10 minutes and then a walk 10 minutes, because it's been shown that has similar results.
The numbers are the numbers.
Sometimes when you have lack of time, online exercises has been an option, and online is very interesting because there's growing evidence in its favor, comparing online and also the same activity in person with similar results. And it actually helps people increase the frequency because they bypass transportation, or one day you can't make it to the gym and you can actually grab an online class. It would be interesting to have schedules of the gym and schedules of online classes that maybe I can jump onto in case I need it. The environment, because of time issues, and I do want to look if there's any questions. All good?
You're fine.
It's just, again, the technology is expanding in a way that will help us to control better the environments and to have maybe more isolated gyms or comfortable gyms. We don't want isolation.
Just access to the expertise that you can get by finding it online is valuable. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to finish with just this thought that another barrier that I see, which is an interesting thing that has occurred. We have so many options of exercises at this moment that the barrier that I have added in, that I don't know exactly where we fit it in this division of personal barriers health, is the fact that we have so many options at this moment of exercise that people might feel lost in choosing what they need and knowing when to change. And if exercise is being looked at this moment as medicine and how it has to be prescribed, it's worth you thinking about what is my goal and what do I want to improve, so that you make sure that whatever you're doing has research to back up what you want to improve. Okay, you might hear often someone say, just choose whatever you like, but hopefully with this image, it can make sense that if we are looking at exercise like medicine, just choosing whatever you like is kind of contradictory, right? Because there's so much research to support A, B, C, or D. Why wouldn't we choose exactly the pill that you need for your improvement? Now, there's an exception to this that's very important. If the person is highly dismotivated, with apathy, with depression, then anything goes. In that case, it's really critical to do what you really love. Start with that so that you can get more used to doing the exercise, create those habits, and then consider maybe changing for something. But so that is the exception that I open.
I would also say there might be some things that are more seasonal. So during the middle of the winter, maybe it's snowshoeing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's something that's more appropriate for the summer. And then also things that might help you for seasonal changes when it starts getting icy, things that help you with stability and walking. Mm-hmm. There's so many options we get there.
Good. So I think that's a nice, interesting new thing that's happening. And the other one is this message of, we are hearing so many talks on exercise and the emphasis on vigorous exercise, and we know the research is backing up that helps you fight better against Parkinson. That's true. I have heard from several people telling me how they hate when professionals say exercise, because they feel like the little children. I have heard this often, and feeling that they have to do so much exercise that it's actually discouraging. So I don't have absolutely no research to support this, just my clinical experience, that it's worth also understanding that what you are being told, if it's influencing your motivation.
It's very easy culturally too for me to keep bringing up Colorado as all this group. There are people in Colorado who probably also don't like to exercise and probably don't want to hear it all the time. So,
Yeah.
you know, you guys do have on average, a much higher fitness level, but that's not the world.
In my world, vigorous exercise is sitting and standing 12 times straight.
Yeah.
It depends on the person. It really depends on the person. So that's important, the definition of vigorous exercise.
There's a lot of coffee after exercise over here, which I think we should all be doing over there too.
And the last thing is like most of the clinical research that we see on the exercise programs, boxing, dancing, whatever, the compliance that people have in research studies has nothing to do with real life.
Mm-hmm.
And more researchers are trying to see how we can connect these two worlds, because when the person's participating in a research study, they're more motivated, they adhere more because they have professionals that are on them all the time, right? So it's worth understanding that there's limits to the knowledge that we have at this moment.
Yep.
And I'll finish there.
Yeah,
And I apologize if I overtook my time.
Okay, a lot to say. I did kept up with it. Someone was talking about topics we might cover in the future as we do this.
If anyone wants to unmute and ask a specific question, that we can be.
We're happy to stay and make sure that we don't leave anyone behind on this. So someone was asking about DBS in the future. For each one, talking about neurogenic orthostatic hypotension. There's a couple topics. This is the last one in this series. We'll pick it up. Perhaps in the fall, we'll be talking with them about the timing. I know that the big conference is somewhere coming up in early fall, so it might be a little weird. Yeah. Greg, it's funny. Greg was helping us with a project many years ago. We still use that
Greg
video
said
all the time.
You have to live a very purposeful. Oh, I'm not going to be able to say the word. With purpose, life with purpose.
There you go. Good solution.
I totally agree with that. That is the biggest key to motivation, is to really be involved in something that is keeping you with that purpose in life.
For sure. Greg's also the one that mentioned grandkids too, so I think there's a little tie-in with that too. So, okay, well, folks, I really appreciate you joining us today. We will be compiling this video and sending it up to the Parkinson Association in the Rockies, and they'll have it on their YouTube channel. Usually they're pretty quick. We'll get it to them by the weekend. And we'll be taking the rest of the summer off, so we hope to see some of you folks in the fall. Join us for any of the online classes. If you're looking for classes in your area, I would contact PAR directly. They'll know where all of them are. That's on their website as well. So thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.
Wait, you wanted any questions?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Thank you for the series. Yeah, thank you. If you were just being nice. Yes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. I hope this was useful.
Yeah, nice place. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.